Right, so for today's Novedge webinar 57, Vectorworks guru Jonathan Pickup of ArchonCAD will give us the latest scoop on what's new with Vectorworks 2013, the latest version of Nemetschek's premier CAD software. Now, there are a lot of new things in Vectorworks 2013. Some of these are fixes or enhancements to the current Vectorworks, and some of them are brand new. New features are going to make working in Vectorworks 2013 substantially faster by improving your workflow. There has been a lot of work done to improve importing, exporting, site modeling, spaces, and plants. Some adjustments are noticeable at first, but in Vectorworks 2013, it's going to make the overall user experience much, much faster. Luckily for us today, with Novedge, Jonathan Pickup of ArchonCAD will show us the details. With more than 30 years of experience as a trained architect in both New Zealand and in the UK, Jonathan Pickup has been writing and producing Vectorworks manuals and providing customer support for more than 15 years. His company ArchonCAD is the premier provider of third-party Vectorworks manuals and training resources. He also runs the Vectorworks online user group and provides its main direction. The presentation today itself will be about 40 minutes long, and in just a bit I will hand over the podium to Jonathan. If you have any questions at any time during the presentation, please post them into the chat window so we can answer them during the Q&A session. Heads up, this webinar is recorded live, so if you want to rewatch episode 57 in its entirety, as always, you can find it on our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube. With that said, I will now turn it over to Jonathan. Jonathan, are you there?
Hi, Kevin.
Awesome. All right, cool. So good to hear your voice. You also mentioned that today is your 20th anniversary.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know if it's the exact day, Kevin, but I realized the other day that it's 20 years since I bought my first version of Vectorworks.
Awesome,
it was a 2D version when I first bought it,
okay.
and my first Macintosh. So
Okay.
It's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Cool. All right, I'm going to change the slides over to you, and I'll make you the presenter right about now. Let me know if this is coming on your Mac, okay?
It is coming from my Macintosh, so I can't tell if you can see my screen yet.
All right, it's waiting for you right now. Is that the right one?
No, that's not the right one.
Okay, we'll switch it over. Hang on there, folks. All right, let's try this one.
That's the right one.
Awesome.
So you should be now looking at my Macintosh.
Mm-hmm.
So just in case we have a problem, Kevin, I've got my Windows machine running just in case there's a technical hitch. We can jump to the other one.
Awesome. And I also want to let the audience know that if there's any issues at all, let us know through the chat window, and we'll be sure to try to fix it, okay? Here we are.
Thanks a lot. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was these, I heard you mention these lots of small changes which are going to enhance the user experience. And a lot of them have got to do with classes. So there's been enhancements to the space object, for example. When we go to the settings of the space object, we'll find that there's now an ability to use classes to control the graphic style of things. So here, for example, we can now use class objects. We can use their class. We can set their class style as their fill, the color by class style, and so on. And this ability to set or to use the class to control the style and the color of things is actually flowing through many of the Vectorworks objects. So one of the things that I used to be just a little bit unhappy with was when I do roof framing, for example. I would use the roof framing tools, and when I went to create something like a rafter, my object attributes, I could set the class style, the fill style, you know, the pen style, but I couldn't set the class for the line thickness. This has changed, and now you're able to do it. They've actually started to take this through lots of other objects as well. So it's not just the couple that I'm showing you here, other things like the site modeling, for example. When I create a site model, one of the things I can do with the site model, if I look at my site model settings and the graphic properties, I can now use classes to control the graphic style of my site model. Not only can you use the classes to control the graphic style of these parts of the site model, but you can also use classes to turn those parts on and off, which I think is quite cool. It means that if you wanted to, you could create a site model that did not have minor contours. I think those are my minor contours there. And I've now turned off my minor contours, showing just the major ones. And I think that's going to be a big improvement in the way we deal with things in Vectorworks. I think classes are going to be, well, to me they're pretty important anyway, but Vectorworks has now made them more important. One of the other class changes is this thing called the hierarchical menus, or a concept called the hierarchical menus. In the past, the hierarchical display for the classes was like this. There was none. So you'd see all of the classes, one after the other, and now it looks like I've got a giant list of classes. 2013's got this concept, the hierarchical classes, or the hierarchical display, and now you can see that I've got groups of classes. I think that's going to make it a lot easier to deal with large numbers of classes, but it's also making me think that I need to look at my layer and class standard again and change the way I've created my standard classes. I used to be not very happy about these deep menus or these deep classes, going down inside my classes to find one particular class. But now that we've got this hierarchical display, I'm much happier about having groups of classes inside groups. I've been playing with this as my layer and class standard. And if I have a look at it with the non-hierarchical display, there are lots of classes. And what I've tried to do is group them together to make fewer major groups. So when we look at it, it doesn't look like I've got too many classes. But for example, if I look inside structural, you see I've got quite a lot of classes, even my roof class is inside here. And it makes it easier for me to deal with those parts, that information. Not only that, but the hierarchical display allows you to turn off all the components or all the classes inside that main heading with one click. That's going to make it quicker to turn classes on and off. So I'm pretty happy with that hierarchical display. It also appears in the organization dialog box. So you can have the hierarchical display on. This is the button to control the hierarchical display. So you can turn that on or off. And as I said, I think this is going to be a change to certainly a change to the way I deal with my classes. And I think for a lot of my clients, they're going to be looking at, well, now that I've been using more classes, how do I need to organize them? Do I need to have like a major heading to some of my classes? For example, interior. And you can see inside interior, I've got these subgroups. Then inside that, I've got some more. And inside that, I've got some more. So that's the first part, this introduction of classes, which I think is going to be really important. They've changed the site modeling, and I showed you a little bit about the site model settings and how you can use classes. And they've also introduced a couple of other features. One of my favorite ones is this one that I'm going to use now. I've got a site model here, and I've got 3 different pads. We used to have a thing around it called a boundary. They've changed the name of that. It's now called a grade limits. So in other words, it's limiting the changes in the grade of your site model. They haven't just changed the word. They've also changed the ability to have the class control the graphic style of that object. So that's going to be easier to see. You can turn them on in some viewports, turn them off in others, that kind of thing. They've also got a new command called, let's have a look here. Under terrain, it should be, I'm just going to change to my landmark workspace to make sure it's there. And it's called Create Grade Limits from Pad. It should be in the architectural menu under terrain, but this is the landmark menu because I want to put some plants in shortly. So I can create a grade limits from pad. So I've got my pad selected, and I've got 3 selected, and I can create a grade limits, in other words, a boundary. Now I can either use a distance, or I can use a batter slope. If you use a batter slope, the slope here, maximum slope 20 degrees, but you also have this maximum offset. So if you want to have a shallow slope like this, you've also got to increase the maximum slope to a distance that allows it to put that slope in. Otherwise, the maximum slope the maximum offset will override the slope. Let's just try distance, 500 millimeters or almost 2 feet. And there it is. It's created my site modifier for me already. Let's update my site model. And there it is. One of the other visual changes they've made to the site model is the way they've hidden all of the triangles or all of the site model inside my pads. Now that might seem something really small, but when you go back to Vectorworks 2012 and you look at the same site model, it is actually kind of confusing seeing all the triangles in here. You don't know that that's truly flat. Well, now it's easy to see. And I like that create grade limits from pad. I mean, for doing domestic construction, getting a pad for the right size, it's so quick. There used to be other ways to do it, but this to me is just a nice increase in speed. If you use the other one, so I just have to select those 3 pads again, and let's do the create grade limits from pad, and let's set that to 3 meters, or about 10 feet. I think I did it the wrong way around, didn't I? Let's just do that again. Grade limits from pad. About a slope, there we are. So let's set that to 30 degrees. Make sure you put a maximum offset which is great enough for that. And now it's calculated the grade offset to be 30 degrees all the way around. Update my site model again, and there it is. Now that's a grade limits. So that's just an object which is a grade limits for what we used to call a boundary. Let's get rid of a couple of those. And there's a new technique or a new command called create pad from grade limits. And this tries to even out the slopes in that area. So what it does is it tries to calculate the cut and fill volumes and reduce them to a minimum. And that would be my result. Let's just update my site model. If we look at that from a right isometric again, and it's created this flat area here, which is to try to reduce the cut and fill to 0. I've done enough of that, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And we'll get rid of that one as well. I want to talk about this particular pad here. Because when we look at the pads under site modifiers, we've got a new pad object, which is a pad with a retaining edge. Now this one doesn't look like it does very much, but what it actually creates are 2 site modifiers very, very, very close together. So close together they look like one. Now, when you update your site model, you can actually create a very steep edge to your site modifier. Now I've shown a trick how to do this, and what we want to do is we want to edit, not the vertex, we want to edit the retaining modifier edge, and then I'm going to send it to the surface. Is that the right one? I'll try that one, send to surface. Oh, it's, I know what it is, my site model needs correct updating. So let's just go back to that. What I need to do is I need to, at the moment I've sent it to the surface, but of course I've already edited my site model, so I've already got a flat pad in that area. And what I really have to do is to do this without updating my site model first, and it would have sent my retaining modifier edge to follow my site, to follow my slope, and it looks pretty cool when you do it. So I'm just going to update my site model. I'm going to move that out of the way. I'm going to update my site model so it's correctly updated. Let's put that back and back to an isometric view. So what I should be able to do now is to send that to the surface. I'm pretty sure it's the modifier edge. And there it is, it's now sent that to the surface of my site model. When I update, what I should end up with is a steep part on the back. So the ground comes up, that site modifier edge is actually on touching the surface of my terrain. So it comes up, steep down, and I got flat across. It works pretty well, but I tell you, I sometimes get a bit confused about which one of those options to choose. And I had to write some notes to cover it. So it's the retaining modifier edge, and that trick I thought worked pretty well. Right, we're finished with our classes, I think. I'm just going to go back to the floor. There's been some changes to the windows. One of the things that used to get to me was if I created a whole lot of windows and I forgot to go through the settings and turn on the particularly the ID tag. It's something I could quite easily forget. I'd forget to put on the right class maybe, numbers. And the new thing here, showing the tag in 3D, which I thought was pretty cool. So let's put a bubble around that, the hexagon. So this is new, being able to show your ID in 3D, which is really cool because I reckon you'll be able to use this to show your window numbers on your elevations. You can put them on their own class, you can turn them on some elevations, turn them off for others. But in the past, if you wanted to select more than one window, you weren't able to edit more than one window. So you do that to one window, but you've still got, 10 or 20 others to do. Because what you'd find is the button here, the settings button, would grey out. Now, it doesn't. Now you can go through and you can change the settings. So let's put all those on there. Let's keep horizontal. Let's give them all a hexagon, and we'll include all those on a schedule. So now all my selected windows have changed. Now, unfortunately, they've all got the same number, but you can easily go around and fix that. So to me, that's a big time saver because the number of times I've forgotten to put the ID on or I've got the wrong. The other thing that sometimes happens is you end up with the wrong class on parts or you end up with the wrong line weight on parts. Now you can change all of your windows at the same time. So I think that's going to be useful. Let's just go back to a plan view. This pop-up used to control line weight and line style. You'll notice that all my line styles are missing. In fact, they're not even called line styles anymore. They're called line types. So if you want to create a dashed line, the place to do it is here. You choose line type, and then you can choose the line type you want to use. Little dash style. So if I draw a line, you'll see I've got a dash style there. Let's just pull that down because I'd like something like a freehand tool. So I can now draw freehand lines and assign them to my dash style. Now the dash styles used to be quite simple. So you weren't able to do things like this fence line where the rectangle actually follows the curve as it goes round. Or you weren't able to do things like phone line easily. Of course you'd use a repetitive unit to do it, but it wasn't as fluid as this. This to me is a lot more fluid. We can make the line go anywhere we want. We can put whatever we want inside the line. It's extremely graphic. We can have circles, for example, break lines. I thought it was quite funny. You can even have footprints. So if you wanted to do a walkthrough, you can create a graphic style, and it's just repeating the graphic that you create. Let's have a look at some of the changes that Vectorworks have made to the viewing things. I'm going to turn on my layer options. Let's see, show snap modify others. I need my navigation palette for this. Here it is. I don't want to see my site model. And let's change to 3D view. So there's a couple of things. One of the things I wanted to look at was the walkthrough tool. Now I've got a view of the walkthrough tool which is not common. Normally when you get the walkthrough tool, the perspective is cropped. This is the old way of looking at it. So what you'd tend to see is this cropping frame. And quite often what you'd find is that the cropping frame was cutting off the edge of your building. So now when you go to rendering, you go to perspective and you choose cropped, it changes. Now not only does it change the crop, you can no longer see the crop object, but you might notice that you can also see a sky and a ground, and that makes it easier for you to see. Just going to see if I can zoom in. No, doesn't want to zoom in for me. Okay, so I've got my object. Now the walkthrough tool, you used to have to be very careful where you clicked. You had to start in the middle and you had to move your mouse up and down or left and right. Now, it doesn't matter where you click. You can click anywhere on the screen and it leaves this little cross behind. If you move above the cross, you move in. If you move below the cross, you move out. Left, right. So now you can actually click anywhere you like. You just click and hold your mouse button down, and I think this is going to make it a lot quicker to zoom through the building or walk through the building, because it's just that much easier to use. Doesn't matter where you click, you just click and move your mouse up and you start walking forward. Now I've got a project I'd like to look at where I want to do some work in the bathroom, but there are quite a lot of things in there, so let's have a look. It's this one. We want to go to our floor, turn on our roof, turn on our lower floor, turn on our unified view, and we want to look at everything. Now that floor just wants to be on the layer plane. That's better. So I'd like to work in that bathroom from this kind of view, and when I snap my other layers, it's quite difficult to look inside there. We've got a new option here called the clip cube. The clip cube can clip out a part of that view, and the clip cube can be modified, and I've just selected it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change back to an isometric view so you can see it more easily. There it is there. There's my clip cube. If you select the clip cube, you can then highlight different faces, and you can pull those different faces around. So what we could do is we could pull that into that bathroom. It's just, there's the wall there. I want just that bathroom there to be able to work on that. And let's pull that across, and just as soon as that bath starts to disappear. Now the clip cube is saved when you save a view. So if I save this view and I want to restore it, the clip cube will come back the way I want. So let's just make that change, and untitled view, and the clip cubes come back the way I wanted, and there it is. I can now work on that area. If I render the view, I can now work on that bathroom without the distraction of the other parts. Now you can't turn this into a viewport like this, but it does make it quicker for doing your modeling. So you should be able to get in here, work on that wall, work on the windows, work on that, model on the wall, use your, you should be able to use things like the automatic working plane to model on the face of the wall, and so on. So that should make things a lot quicker for us. I don't really want that object there, so I'm just going to delete it. So that clip cube, I think, is going to be quite useful for larger scale projects, particularly like urban design type things. You'll be able to limit what you're looking at. Landscaping is going to be have a lot of use for that, and also in the architectural, to try and get rid of as much as you can so you can focus on things. If this was a large multi-story apartment building, this would be really cool just to be able to focus on the one apartment that I wanted to work on. There's a new Vectorworks annotation object called the Hyperlink. If I place a hyperlink, I can then link that to different things. So let's just have a look at our settings. It's controlled by a symbol, so you can edit the symbol and change the text, change the style, to change the look, the font, the size, all that kind of stuff. You have to do it through the symbol. But once you've created your hyperlink, you can choose what it does. So for example, it can open a web page, launch an application, open a document, open a folder, and so on. In this situation, I've already placed a hyperlink here. I've placed a hyperlink for the floor plan. Now, if I want to open the link, there's a keyboard shortcut which I can use. On a Macintosh, it's the Command key. And it then activates that hyperlink. Now, the hyperlink was to go to the sheet view. I've got another one here which goes to a detail. So let's highlight that. And it goes to my bathroom plan. You can even open a web browser. So that was a specific bath that I wanted the client to look at, and I've put the hyperlink in, and when the client clicks on that hyperlink, it will open in my web browser. When I export these drawings as a PDF file, the hyperlinks go through as well. So let's just export those into my desktop. And it's now doing my PDF. It might also take a little while because I've got a rendered view, which I was hoping to show you the rendered view because we now have this thing called non-blocking rendering, which allows us to start the rendering on a viewport and then go back and do something else in the file. Previously, when we had rendering, once you started rendering a file, you couldn't do anything about it until it had finished. And here's the non-blocking rendering icon here. So what happens is this non-blocking rendering icon will spin even if you leave the design, even if you leave that layer. Now, non-blocking rendering only works with viewports, but what it means is that you can set up some viewports to render. You can then walk away from it or go somewhere else. You can go to a different part of the design layer. You can go to a different sheet layer. You can carry on working in your file while Vectorworks renders those viewports in the background. As I said, only works with viewports, doesn't work with design layer rendering. So I tried to set up some viewports so that I could show you how they rendered. Sort me out now because now we have to wait for that to finish. Now the result of this rendering and this file should be a PDF file that allows me to click on those hyperlinks. So in other words, you can create a PDF file, give it to your client, they can then navigate their way around the drawings by clicking on the hyperlinks. And if you connect them to websites, then the client can also look at the different websites. Now the non-blocking rendering, unfortunately, it doesn't stop the batch export, so we still have to wait for that to finish. Now, Kevin, I might just have to force Vectorworks to stop if it doesn't stop soon because I don't want to wait for it to finish rendering.
Okay, I hear you. I understand.
I apologize, everybody.
No worries.
I've completely forgotten about these viewports. I knew I put them in there to demonstrate another feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force Vectorworks to quit, and I'm going to start it up again.
Well, just a heads up, Johnny. We have a bunch of questions from our audience, and I think we'll answer them in just a bit after this whole session is done. So it's going to be very interesting, that's for sure.
Well, I've got some other rendering things I wanted to cover, like the physical sky, which I really love, and there's the auto hybrid I wanted to talk about, and there was also something that I thought was really important, the detail callouts or the detail viewports. I think are really cool, really important in the way you structure your drawings. And the surface array is just a fun thing to use. It really is. So let me open some of those files. The physical sky and rendering. So this is a new technique, and what we have is we have the Heliodon tool we've had previously, but the Heliodon tool is now linked to something called a physical sky. So I need to select my Heliodon. I've got a couple here, so let's just select that on the document. And here's my object info palette. So the Heliodon has this new option called the physical sky. So when I render this viewport, and I hope there's only one Renderworks style in here now, yep. This should be a quick rendering. Now, you might notice, Kevin, that the sky has now got stars on it. It's not a background I created, it's the physical sky. If I change the time of the day to midday, oh, by the way, you can type into the Heliodon a few words now, like dawn, dusk, sunset, midday, and it does that. So it's the same background. I haven't got two backgrounds, I've only got the one background, but the physical sky background actually reads the Heliodon, knows what time of day it is. And if I make that dawn, I don't know what time dawn is, so I'm just going to type in dawn. And did it find it? Let's just do that again. Select on document, and we'll type in dawn again. And so it's a, should be that one there. So now you can see the sky's gone red because it's dawn. So the sky actually changes depending on the time of the day of the Heliodon. And what this means is I used to have lots of different Renderworks styles. I used to have one for night, one for day. I used to have different backgrounds for night and day for different things. I get rid of all of them. You only need a couple now, and to me, again, this is a speed increase. It's going to make it faster for you to do this stuff because you can set up the viewports, you can set up the Heliodons, you can set up the viewports with the time of the day. It just makes it a lot quicker. They're so easy to do night and day renderings. The auto hybrid I wanted to look at. The auto hybrid's a new technique. If I look at this bathroom again, so I've got a bath object there. Actually, I want to replace it with a real bath from a real website, and I could use this model here. Now, the Georeferencing website I like a lot because they've got these downloads that you can download. They've got the 3D model of this bath, and I'm going to download that. I'm going to import that as an IGES file. There it is there. Now the thing I like about these IGES files is they automatically come out with nice 3D rendering, but they also come out with the right size. Now unfortunately, because of the type of object that it is, it's see-through. It's not like a hybrid object. Now in the past you'd have to trace over it and draw all that, but now we can go create auto hybrid. It's now created the 2D and the 3D parts of that object. I can control the cut plane height. So if I make it only a few inches high, it'll change the shape. The cut plane probably needs to only be 8 inches. So you can see a change in a difference in that. But I'm not going to worry about that. So let's leave that at 1,000. So there's my auto hybrid. I think this is going to make it a lot easier to create your symbols because it's so much easier now to create your hybrid part of it. You go to things like the Georeferencing website, you can import the wash hand basins, the toilets, the baths, all kinds of stuff. And it just makes it so quick to create that. I'd like to look at what I think is a really important feature, this detail viewport. In this particular file, I've set it up already. I've got a two-dimensional sections, cross-sections I've drawn, a high level of detail. I've drawn all the reinforcing. I've drawn all the vapor barriers and everything. This is an old file. This is the way I used to create my sections, highly detailed. Now, the strategy would be, I really want to take this and help make a foundation drawing from that. So in this particular drawing, there are no foundation details. What I'd like to do is to take some information from this section and put it on my details. So can I do that? Let's start with this one. Let's edit my annotations. I'm going to zoom in because I'd quite like to make this area here into a detail. You've got a new concept called Create Detail Viewport. We choose the layer. We give it a number. We give it a title. Select detail. Let's give it a scale.
Hey, Jonathan.
Choose our call-out options.
Jonathan?
Choose the line weight, a simple symbol for the marker.
Jonathan, your microphone is breaking up just a little bit.
Okay. Does it break when I'm moving the dialog box, or is it just constantly?
Yeah, it's constantly. It's as Sharon would say, it's degrading. Is there any way to adjust that?
Kevin, has that improved anything?
It has. Awesome.
Cool. I've just found with these, sometimes on these Macintoshes, you just got to reset the mic every once in a while. Happens to on my clients as well. So we were talking about this marker object here. So we can choose the leader line, we can choose a tag position, bottom left, bottom right. And okay. So there's my detail. That's number one. I can go back to that detail callout. In other words, if I activate the detail callout, it'll activate where I got it from there. I think that bubble's a bit big, so I'm going to make it a 6. And then I want to zoom in here, and I want to create another detail, which is this one here. So again, going on foundations, it's a slab detail number 2, scale, options, bottom left, let's choose bottom right. So now I can line these two up, two sections or two details, and I can actually line them up like that, move them apart, and so now I've got an ability to take other information and make my details out of that, which I think is pretty cool. They link back to the original instance, back to here. I can change that back to 6 again. I can change them from the bottom left, bottom, top right, move them all around. The beauty is that they're linked together. So if I move this, it's not so much if I move that section, but if I renumber or move these details, the callouts will update. So these will update if I move or renumber those viewports. If I change the size of these, so let's just go here, I'd like to make that taller so it grabs more of my floor detail. Let's go back and have a look at my foundations, and you can see that detail has increased. I've got more information in there. So you can now take some of your information you've already created and you can make details from it. Now you don't have to use section viewports like this. You don't have to put your references inside a annotation part of the viewport. You can put them directly on the design layer if you want. I've got another file I'd like to show you where I've got some cross sections, and these are live cross sections. So this is a live section through a 3D model, and I can then create a detail call out from here, maybe doing a blow up of that stair. So you can take a cross section, you can create a detail section viewport from it, you can even take a portion of this and create the stair detail and annotate it. Any annotations you put in this viewport do not flow backwards. Which I think is pretty cool. So I think that these detail viewports are going to make a change to the way we think about constructing our drawings, because you could put a detailed viewport around that, and that could then link to this floor plan, for example. You could then put a detailed viewport around that area, which would then link through to your bathroom plans, for example. So I think that, for me, I think that's going to change the way I think about constructing my documents, how many design layers I need, how many viewports I need, how I'm going to create those. I think it's a thing that needs a lot of thought. I think it's a major. I think we'll finish with something fun, surface array. The surface array tool takes some raw 3D objects like this, and it flows them or creates an array across a Novedge curve. Any of you that have seen my bus stop before might recognize my roof. So I'm going to turn that into a surface array. I'm going to use 10 repetitions in that direction and 10 repetitions in that direction. And there it is. It is really quick. Once you've created it, you can then make changes to it. So you can then change the number of repetitions in each direction if you want. We've got the ability to show the, to display the base surface if we want, to trim the edge or to overlap at the edge. So I've chosen trim, but if I choose overlap, you should find that I've got lots of little ends hanging out here. So I'm just going to go back to there. Now those are raw objects. This object has been solid modeled, and you'll notice that it doesn't stretch when I create my surface array. So we're going to go 5 in that direction and 5 in that direction. So you notice that because I'm not displaying my base surface, it looks a little odd, and they don't stretch. Now I've previously assigned a texture to my object that I just arrayed and to my base objects. When I render those, it should all look like stainless steel. Now I thought that was pretty cool, and it's really quick. I've previously rendered these two objects. See, they've got their texture on them, and I'm going to create a set of curving bookcases. So 10 and 10. I just think this is so quick to do these sort of curvy shapes. Now I'm going to edit the base surface. It's a Novedge curve, so I can use my reshape tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that corner back, and let's see what happens to my base. And you notice that my bookcases are now folding over more in the background. There's kind of no end to the stuff you do with this.
Hi, Jonathan. I hate to interrupt, but I have this pretty good question. It's pretty relevant to what you're doing right now. It's about surface arrays from Jarrett, and he wants to know how come the first object stretches and the dome object doesn't. Sorry about that.
Well, the reason for that is that Vectorworks looks at the type of object that this is. This object is an extrusion, and not a solid model. So it's not an add solid, subtract solid, and so on. So if it's just raw extrusions, then they stretch. If you've done any solid modeling on it, they don't. So what I'd like to look at is I've got this object here, which is a tile. Now I made a little hole in the tile so it was no longer a solid subtraction. And then I can select this object, and then I can do my surface array again. Only this time it's a fixed distance, and the distance is 605 millimeters. I know it's a specific funny number, but that's the size of my tile. And look at that, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Just straight off, there are my tiles up there. Well, Kevin, that's just about everything I wanted to talk about. There's a few things that I haven't spoken about, but to me the big things were the, like the changes in the classes. More classes, fewer layers. I've said that for a while. Classes are, with the 2013, classes are more valuable. We've looked at some of the new techniques, the hyperlink, the detailed viewport I think is a major. And the fun thing here, the surface array, which is just so easy to create shapes with. I've been playing with the idea of perhaps creating roof finishes, corrugated iron, tiled roof, that kind of thing, using the surface array. Well, Kevin, I think it's perhaps time to answer some questions.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's see. I'm going to try to post all of the important questions to the chat window so that everybody can see it as well. So give me a second here. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one about Revit. I will assign it to you. That way you'll be able to see it. Let me know if you see the question, Jonathan.
Where will I see it?
It should pop up as a question window.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Okay. So this is from Jeff, okay? He wants to know, what about interfacing with Autodesk Revit? Revit is requested a lot in this area from university and government clients.
That's a tricky one. I don't feel really confident to answer that. There's a limit to what you can export from Vectorworks, but there's also a limit to what Revit will import, and I don't know Revit well enough to know that. One of the things I have heard is that the latest version of Revit will not export to earlier versions of Revit, forcing everybody onto the same version of Revit. No, well, that's the best answer I can give at the moment, Kevin, that the interfacing is limited. You might be able to DXF, you might be able to IFC, but I don't know how well Revit will import those or use the information.
Okay, there you go, Jeff. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, go ahead and check out Jonathan Pickup's page as well, okay? So this is from Jane. Jane wants to know, I'm going to assign this to you. Jane wants to know, when I copy a plant from my resources file, the tag is missing. When I added the symbol for the plant goes blank. Is there a fix for this? It's not something I've experienced. I think I've heard someone else talk about this, and I'm not sure what you mean by when you copy a plant from your resource file. You shouldn't drag plants from the resource browser into your document. You should use the place plant tool. I didn't have time to look at the plants, but they have changed a little bit. So I don't know, I probably need a bit more information about that one. That would be one that I'd have to look at, I think, in a lot more detail. As I said, it hasn't affected me. I haven't seen that yet. But I don't drag plants from my resource browser and drop them into my file. I don't know if you're doing that, but I'd recommend not doing that. And perhaps instead of duplicating plants inside the resource browser, use the duplicate function when you're using a plant object. Okay, Jane. Yeah, so if you have any questions, email Jonathan Pickup, okay? Let's see. Mike wants to say happy anniversary. Let's see, what else? Okay, here's one from Jeff. Can you work on one file, parentheses, project, with multiple users?
No. No, you still have to use workgroup referencing. So you still have to divide your project up into several files. Each user can then use one file, and those are then either shared together or referenced together in order to create a work group situation.
Okay, all right. Irving wants to know, as I began using 2013, I discovered the new features of the line tool. In the demo, you showed graphics inserted. How does one place the graphics? Do you use the object info palette and somehow cut and paste? Please demo.
No. The way you do this is to, when you create a line, where's my resource browser? So let's just, have I got one of my dashed ones here? Let's create a new line type. A new line type, it can either be a simple or a complex. And when you create a complex one, you draw a line for the start, and you'll notice it automatically repeats. then if you draw an object here, it automatically repeats. So to draw those footprints, all I did was to draw some curvy shapes with 5 toes on them, and they repeated again and again. So I drew one over here, and I drew one over here, and then they just repeated. In fact, you don't even have to draw that line. You can just draw those shapes like that, and now I have a new line type that I can use. And if I choose that line type that I just created, there it is. It's really quick to do. If you know how to create a tile in Vectorworks, it's very similar.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay, Sharon wants to know, yeah? Okay, Sharon wants to know, does the walkthrough tool have the ability to follow changes in grade automatically?
No. That's an answer.
That's a quick answer. Let's see. I'm going to assign this one. I like this one's a little bit detailed, but Tom wants to know. I like being able to choose the line weight and a line style from the same pull-down menu as in version 2012. In Vectorworks 2013, now I have to pull down the 2 menus to make the same choice. Is that correct?
Sure. Well, it is correct. But unfortunately, what Tom, you might remember that in order to change the line weight and the line style, you had to pull the same menu down twice. So I don't think it's any extra work. One of the other things, Tom, though, is that you can change the line, because the line style and the line weight are now disconnected, you can drag and drop your line types on and then choose the weight. So you don't have to use this if you don't want to. You can drag and drop the resources from the resource browser.
Okay. I like the Heliodon tool feature a lot. So are the backgrounds included with 2013 in Renderworks?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I only used one background. I used a physical sky. The physical sky is a Renderworks background, and when you create it, let's create a new resource, a Renderworks background. You choose physical sky, and then you've got the options for it. Where I live, it's always sunny. No, just kidding. It's mostly sunny.
All right.
And so that's the one I choose. Well, I just think they look better when they're mostly sunny.
Okay, I'm not sure if this would be cool. This might be a little too technical, but we'll see. This is from, let's see, Gibson. I've been having real difficulties with rendered walkthroughs. I used to be able to do this successfully using OpenGL, but the latest model I did in 2013 renders extremely slowly and reverts to wireframe sometimes. Any suggestions?
Let me try to be very clear. The OpenGL is very labor intensive on your graphics card. If you don't have a big enough, fast enough graphics card, your OpenGL walkthroughs will suffer. Now, the recommended minimum is now 512 megabytes of video on your RAM on your video card. Now, if you look at a Macintosh, that limits which ones you can go and get. If you look at like an iMac, for example, the only ones that really have that amount of graphics capability are the bigger iMacs. The Mac Minis, no. The big tower jobs, yes. Some of the laptops, yes, like the 15-inch I think you've got to start looking at. And when you buy a Windows machine, again, the graphics card, very intensive on the graphics card. So I'm sorry, Sharon, what you might find is that it's to do with the graphics card. Will 2013 allow you to open multiple windows of the same file? No, I'm sorry, it won't. We're still with Vectorworks with the one window, one user file.
Okay, let's try this one. Some of them I'm skipping, but we'll see. How about this one from Ramon? After I create or duplicate a stock space label, I cannot go back to add or delete tags. Okay.
That sounds like maybe a bug. Maybe you need to report that to Vectorworks.
Okay. All right.
I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to edit those after you've duplicated them. But yeah, if it's not working the way you think it should work, then I suggest you report it.
All
In
right.
fact, even Sharon, you're having trouble with the walkthroughs. One of the things you should always do when you've got these sort of problems is actually go back to Vectorworks technical support on their website and actually list it. Like, they don't know you're having trouble until you tell them. And it might be that there's actually a really good reason for it, in which case they can tell you. And if there's not a good reason, maybe they can fix it. But if nobody goes to the Vectorworks website and does the technical support thing, or does a bug, you can list bugs on the user forum, what is it called, the community forum. Tell them. They can't fix stuff they don't know about.
Cool, yeah, and I encourage you guys to do so too as well. Let's see. Stephen wants to know, can you merge files registered to real-world space?
Is he talking about georeferencing files?
I'm not sure.
Because Vectorworks supports georeferencing. In other words, if you've got an image which has a georeferenced information attached to it, you can import that into Vectorworks and it knows where in the world it belongs. If you import shape files, they often have georeferencing. They know where in the world they belong. And if those two things line up, bingo, you've got the image lining up exactly with the shape files. Once you've imported your georeferenced files, you can adjust them to bring them closer to the origin. It's quite straightforward. I don't have time to demonstrate it. In fact, one of the challenges I've got another meeting starting before too long, Kevin, so we are going to have to wrap up shortly. So yeah, Vectorworks supports the importing and the exporting of georeferenced image files, shape files. If no one's seen my little demo on importing shape files, it's really cool. There's a command called modify by a record, which is so powerful. It just staggers me that people don't use it more often.
I think that will end it for our Q&A session. Let me switch on over back to me as presenter. Let's see. Jonathan, are you ready? I'm going to switch it over now.
I'm ready.
All right, cool. All right. Can you guys see my screen here? Okay. First of all, I want to thank Jonathan Pickup of ArchonCAD for joining us today. From the team at Novedge, thank you for co-hosting this webinar with us. And if you guys want to know more about what Jonathan is doing at ArchonCAD, and if you want to find more information about Vectorworks tutorials and resources, please check out Jonathan Pickup's website at learn.archoncad.com. When you do sign up, you'll have access to Vectorworks courses, online workshops, manuals, tips, and even podcasts. So don't miss out on this opportunity to improve your knowledge of Vectorworks. In addition, I want to mention that you can follow Jonathan on Twitter by his handle at ArchonCAD as well. So, if there's something interesting, I'm sure that Jonathan Pickup's going to be on that. Now, folks, if you want to learn more about Vectorworks 2013, or you want to check out its resources as well, you can feel free to visit Nemetschek's own website at vectorworks.net. And in addition, you could RSS as well and follow them on Twitter and Facebook. Now, as an online reseller, if you want to nab your own copy of Vectorworks 2013 or to just get, maybe a price quote, you can visit our website at novedge.com. As the leading online design software superstore, we pretty much have the best prices around. If you feel Vectorworks is the right software for your architectural, lighting, landscape, and perhaps woodworking design needs, you can speak with our specialist Bob at novedge.com. Well, here at Novedge, we also have a community. We like to have a place where designers can meet, network, and catch up on all the latest industry happenings. So we created vectorworking.com as that online place where you can collaborate and communicate with other like-minded design professionals. At Vectorworking, we scour the internet for the latest industry buzz to share it with you. So furthermore, we encourage community members to help each other excel in their careers through discussion and submitted content. The process to sign up is a breeze, and with that, you have access to a weekly community newsletter. Lastly, you can also follow us on Twitter by our handle at Vectorworking. where we'll share with you buzzworthy trends throughout the interwebs or the internet. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about Vectorworking or about today's webinar, please don't hesitate to email me at kevin@novedge.com. I'm all ears, so go for it. In our next upcoming webinar, let's see, episode 58, you can learn how to light and render your designs in a virtual photo studio setting using Maxwell Render. With co-host Mahai Aluda, we will approach the lighting from a photographer's point of view, looking at how to make and adjust different kinds of emitters, depth of light, and how to post-process your images using Photoshop and different render channels. Registration is free, but space is limited, so for more information on how to sign up, you want to check it out, go to our website at novedge.com/webinar/58. And if you want to rewatch episode 57, the one that we just recorded today, and all our other previous webinars, this and past webinars can be found at our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube, so stay tuned. Well, on behalf of our team at Novedge, we want to thank you guys for watching, and have a good one, guys. Bye.